Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Kent. I am Heidi Emhoff Wood, a member of this congregation and this morning's worship associate, serving together with Trudy Deal. Thank you for joining us this morning as we gather virtually once again, a spiritual community that seeks to be diverse and inclusive as we inspire love, work for justice, and grow together in community. Wherever you are this morning, we welcome you. May our time be filled with joy, with belonging, with hope, and with the promise of who we can be together. We extend a special welcome to our visitors. Thank you for worshiping with us this morning. Visitors, if you would like to know more about our church and be known to us, please contact our administrator to be added to our e-news list or to be welcomed by our welcome team. After this service, our welcoming team is hosting a meet and greet. Whether you are brand new, newly new, sort of new, or you just want to meet UUs, please use the Zoom link we'll provide at the end of the service to meet some friendly folks who can serve as some of your first Unitarian Universalist Church of Kent acquaintances. We are a people who care for one another and value the connections we have with each other and with this community.
What kind of family do you come from? How many people live in your house? Maybe you have a mother and father. Maybe your parent doesn't have a spouse. Some kids have two moms or a grandma. Some families have a dad and a dad. Some family skin is a mixture of colors. Some are brown or white or tan. Just one thing is important, more important than how everybody looks, more important than who cleans or tends the garden, does the laundry, takes out the trash, or walks the dog, or cooks. It's all about love. It's all about a shoulder you can cry on. Your family are the folks you can rely on to keep you from harm. Wherever you roam, it's somewhere that you know you'll still belong. Your family is the place where you show your face and you know you're home. What kind of family do you come from? Are you a bird or a beast or a bug? Maybe a stork brought you in on a breeze. Maybe your family lives up high in the trees. Some live in deserts and some in the forest. Some families swim in the ocean wide. Some families live in underground burrows. Some roam freely in the countryside. Whether or not your folks you live with are the same ones that you started with from birth, or if your brothers and your sisters, moms and dads and aunts and uncles came from a very different part of earth. It's all about love. It's all about a shoulder you can cry on. Your family are the folks you can rely on to keep you from harm. Wherever you roam, it's somewhere that you know you'll still belong. Your family is the place where you show your face and you know you're home. Maybe like me, you've lost your mother or father, or maybe you think that no one really cares. Find someone who needs your compassion. We aren't just here to take love, but to share. Give them some love. Offer them a shoulder they can cry on. Be the one they know they can rely on to keep them from harm wherever they roam. Remind them so they know they still belong. Offer them a place where they show their face and they feel at home. 'Cause it's all about love. It's all about a shoulder you can cry on. Your family are the folks you can rely on to keep you from harm wherever you roam. It's somewhere that you know you'll still belong. Your family is the place where you show your face and you know you're home. And you know you're home. And you know you're home.
Thank you, Katie, for that beautiful song. That was awesome. My name is Trudy Deal, and I'm going to lead our service today. And call to worship. When I was growing up in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, a large family lived in the house behind ours. And my sister and I played at their house each day after school until our parents got home from work. 2 of those children were always there. And I found out later that they were adopted. But but the other kids there sometimes came and went. And I heard them called the Fosters, but I didn't know what that meant. During my 20s and 30s, I became aware of the many beautiful ways people form their chosen families. And when considering the family we wanted to create, fostering and adoption was important to us. My spouse, Charles, and I registered as foster parents in 2017 as a way to share our love for children and grow our family. Our journey since has had so many twists and turns in directions we would have never anticipated. So today, I'd like to share with you a little of what we have learned along the way, how fostering has changed our views on family, the foster care system, and on the needs of our society to better support families to stay together. I would also like to share how fostering has strengthened my family's commitment to the UU principles and served as an opportunity to express those in our daily lives. Come, let us worship together.
We join Unitarian Universalists across the country in lighting a chalice, a sign of life's beauty and wonder, a symbol of peace and hope, an invitation to continue our ongoing search for the light of truth within us and among us, and a reminder that we are all interconnected in the great web of existence of which we are a beloved part. As I light our shared chalice, I invite you to light your home chalice. Would you join me now in the words from our covenant? Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This, our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. In the spirit of deepening our connections, creating a sense of belonging, and offering each other support and compassion as our life journeys as individuals and a community continue, we take time now to share our joys and concerns, our struggles and achievements, our hopes and dreams with one another. Please use the chat box to share your joys and concerns with one another. Reverend Stephen shares, Larry Cole suffered a serious fall on Monday with some complications. His daughter Amanda shared with me that he is recovering. We hold him in our hearts and send him healing energy. Your cards, notes, and letters of support are welcome. Colleen Taylor is praying for parents, teachers, and students struggling with big decisions about returning to school. Alyssa asks for prayers for her neighbor Liz, whose infant passed away yesterday. Anne is thinking of Lois and Jen on the weekend of the funeral of Lois's father, John Jewett. Lois and Jennifer thank everyone who shared Lois's father's memorial service yesterday. Angela Finn sharing thanks that Megan Dye was returned home safely after missing from home for 2 days. Mike, Stephanie, Benny, and Katie looking forward to celebrating, is it Mike's 50th birthday on Friday with family at the beach. Stephanie's the one turning 50. Woohoo! Congratulations. This reading is an excerpt from The Boy I Didn't Adopt from the blog A Mothership Down. He was buckled into the back seat of my Toyota, still too little to sit up front. At 7, he had already moved more times than the total number of years he had been on the earth. And this time, like the times before it, he moved with his belongings in a trash bag. A suitcase, at least, would have added a small degree of dignity to the whole affair, to being placed in another and another and yet another foster home before reaching the 3rd grade. Trash bags break, you know. Trash bags can't possibly support the contents of any life, and certainly not a life as fragile as this. They break from the strain, eventually. This move was harder for Stephen than most. It was a home he thought he would stay in, at least for a while. He had felt affection there. When I went to pick him up, after his foster mother gave notice that he could no longer stay, he came easily with me. Head down, no reaction on the surface of it. It was only when he got into my car that he began to sob the kind of aching sound that leaves you limp in its wake. He could barely get out the words. Nobody loves me, not even my mother who gave birth to me. Months later, in a repeat scene, another foster mother and another removal. He would pick a fight. He would run around the living room, ducking behind furniture, refusing to leave. But on this night, he had no fight in him. That was Stephen at 7. 9-year-old Stephen grips his report card in sweaty hands. We're headed to an adoption event where we meet families who want to adopt an older child, families who do not automatically rule out a boy like Stephen with all of his long history. And he wants to impress these strangers. He wants to win them over, and so he brings his good report card along as tangible proof that he is a child worth loving. A child should never have to prove that he is worth loving.
One of my favorite readings at our church is the Chalice Lighting and Covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. It's my elevator speech for our faith, and the covenant also sums up why being a foster parent is so important to me and my family. I'd like to thank the worship arts team for helping me share those experiences with you today. When you first get the call about a child who needs a foster home, you can't help but to get excited. You have filled out a pile of forms, submitted so many documents, sat through 36 hours of training, and you watch your phone day and night. You make up a cute room. You may even throw some cookies in the oven to bake for when the caseworker gets there to help the child feel more welcome. A child will come to your door, and you will provide them a safe, loving home. The child may end up needing a permanent home if reunification efforts fail, so you may be allowed to adopt the child. You may have to help the child transition back to family or other significant people from their life. This is what Charles and I understood at the beginning of our journey when we were given our foster care license in July of 2017 from Caring for Kids, a private nonprofit agency. There was so much more we didn't know that we would learn. We did have an idea that the need for foster and adoptive parents was great, especially for those interested in caring for older children. AFCARS, AFCARS, or the Adoption and Foster Care Analysis and Reporting System, collects data for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And the data I'm going to share with you today appeared in their preliminary report published August of 2019 for fiscal year 2018. It reports that 687,345 children were served nationwide during that year, 26,744 just in Ohio. To put that national figure into perspective, that is the population of Vermont. As of September 30th, 2018, there were 437,283 children in care, 15,730 in Ohio. The average age of a child in care is 7.1 years old. 52% are male, 48% are female. And racially, the majority are white, 47%, while Black children make up 21%, and Hispanic children make up another 20%. Those are the majority of the children. As we had more and more experiences with having a caseworker come to our door with a child, our excitement took on very new conflicting emotions. The reality of the situation is that you are seeing a child on what possibly feels like their worst day of their life. The further reality is that the child's loved ones are also having what possibly feels like the worst day of their lives too. I began to imagine, how would I feel if our child Hunter had been taken from us? If my family had done the best it could with the resources available and it wasn't good enough? How would Hunter feel being taken by strangers and put with another family to live? Our feelings changed from a place of, how could a family let this happen, to how could our community, our country let this happen, to how can we stop this from happening? So what does happen to make a home so unsafe that a child must be separated from their family? The top 5 circumstances associated with removal, and a case may have more than one reason, are also reported by AFCARS. Neglect, 62%, meaning not meeting basic physical, emotional, educational, and/or medical needs. Parent drug abuse, 36%. Caretaker inability to cope, 14%. Physical abuse, 13%. Housing, 10%. When I heard these reasons in training, it was hard to comprehend them. I had some insight from my father about his childhood growing up in a large farm family in Pennsylvania. My own middle-class upbringing, however, had me convinced that there must just be something wrong with these families. In fact, that's a question people ask. What was wrong with the family? I heard a little voice in my head, if they just loved their kids more, they would fill in the blank. This is also a sentiment I've heard from others when they find out we're a family that fosters. The real meaning behind this list began to evolve as we read the case files for each new child in our care, interact with their families of origin, and listen to our children's stories and their pain. Time and time again, we were shown that their families do love them more than anything in the world. Why are they neglecting their children 62% of the time then? generational poverty, lack of access to drug abuse treatment, reproductive health care, mental health care, job training, and discrimination on so many fronts. Their families were doing the best they could with what they had at the time, and the odds were stacked against these families before these children were even born. Through these experiences, my family found deeper meaning not only in our first principle, to respect the inherent dignity and worth of every person, but also our second principle, which promotes justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Colleen shared with us earlier the story of the invisible web and how our actions reach out to the greater community. I am proud of the social justice work of many of our church members to help strengthen that invisible web. Strengthening the invisible web is what will help keep families together. How will you work to strengthen that web? While I'm happy to report that more and more children are being reunified with their families of origin, those children and families all bear scars from their separation. Our reading today about Stephen gives a glimpse into that pain. Their lives and hearts are as fragile as the trash bags that contain their belongings. Remember our numbers about how many children are in the foster care system each year. 345 children across the U.S. Imagine for a moment a world where foster parents were rarely needed and families kept whole and safe. One last bit of data to share from the AFCARS report is that during fiscal year 2018 across the U.S., 125,422 children were legally available for adoption, 3,579 in Ohio. Adoptions, though, for fiscal year 2018 only totaled 63,123 for the U.S., 1,566 in Ohio. The math there is that only roughly half of children who legally are available for adoption and need permanent homes were adopted. The children can't be reunified with their families of origin safely, but may never have a permanent home through adoption either. So they spend their childhood like Stephen, moving from foster home to foster home. This is how you hear about kids aging out of the system. The statistics for their life outcomes are grim, including having their own children end up in foster care and continuing the cycle. Dave Thomas, who was adopted as an infant and became a successful businessman and philanthropist for the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption, is quoted as saying, "These children are not someone else's responsibility. They are our responsibility." And I love that part. They are our responsibility. The story of the invisible web ends by reminding us that together we are all one big happy family. Let us make love the spirit of this family and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music, love, beauty, and a sacred space where we can all belong. We give with the faith that together we have enough. Our congregations thrive because each of you believe in music, love, beauty, and sacred space. In spite of the need for physical distancing, we are strong as a community and able to be together virtually for worship, for community, for shared ministry. This and all of our important work is supported by each of you through the gifts of your time, your talents, and your generous financial donations. Thank you. We now give and receive the offering as a sign of our shared commitment to the life and work of this congregation and beyond.
Breathe
breathe out. I breathe out love.
And now, dear friends, it's time to bring our service to a close. Please join me in the closing words as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice, or we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. May we carry these in our hearts and minds until we are together again.